The Big 12 Experience Media Days recap edition of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. You can win up to 325 times your entry with their new Pick 8 Challenge. Sign up today using the promo code TCESGPN to claim your special pick and first time deposit offer up to $250 bonus in cash. Underdog Fantasy promo code TCESGPN. And we're also brought to you by Rhythm, building your own betting model using their AI betting engine. Claim your 7-day free trial today by going over to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That is the sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM today. And welcome, everybody, to the Big 12 College Experience, part of Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Media days are in the books. We are rolling along as we get closer and closer each and every day to Labor Day weekend when we kick off the Big 12 college football season 2024. But first, I am Moneyline Mac, a.k.a. the former video coordinator for Bob Huggins and Frank Martin. And we're talking Big 12 football, which means I am joined by a man, well, always fighting a family civil war in Stillwater, Waco, Fort Worth, everywhere along the Big 12 country. He is the green mowing, weed growing Big 12 guru, Troy Tuning. What's up, brother?
Well, you know, the best part about media days being over is it just means that we're one day closer. So you get a little bit of a taste, but, you know, media days are really just fluff. Like it's not, I mean, it's just a bunch of hoopla, but it does make you feel like, you know, we're getting close. We're getting close.
7 Saturdays away. I just did the math in my head. So 7 Saturdays. 7 Saturdays, which means 7 weeks from today, North Dakota State is going to be kicking it off against the Colorado Buffaloes because Colorado's got that Thursday night on leading into the week 1 college football weekend. So 7 weeks, which means 49 days, which means 51 days till the opening Saturday. Nothing like Labor Day weekend, the opening Saturday, but we got to recap media days. I don't know. What's your takeaways from day number 2? We go check out a recap for day number 1 where we talked about the first 8, but Dion headlines this one. The commissioner headlines day number 1. Day number 2 was Dion Day. Your takeaway, Troy?
Well, it was definitely Dion Day. He comes out there with a piece of paper and lists off all the new majors that kids have in the football program and how they have the highest GPA on the football team in the last like 20 years. Yeah, it's Colorado. Dudes are fucking smoking weed all day. Like, show up to class, you're already in the top 75 percentile, you know?
Hey, when you start getting your ass beat on the field, you start reading off grades and start selling your program. So
yeah, that was kind of
AK UVA and Stanford now.
Yeah, that was kind of the first thing that I was thinking. You know, before you know it, we're a couple of weeks away from Dion saying that they're the Harvard of the West. It's no longer Stanford; it's now Colorado. It was definitely Dion Day. He comes out there and he asks the reporters how they're doing, and nobody really gives him a reaction. And he goes, if I was in church right now, I'd stand up and walk out. You guys got no energy and stuff. And like, he is a funny guy, but the funniest thing to me was that they actually made Kleiman go after him. And if you look at Lance Leipold went after him. And if you, the day before, Lance Leipold, I got my Kansas K-State mixed up, which I'll probably get sacrificed in the comments for, but
sunflowers.
Leipold comes up there and he's kind of looking around and he's like, I don't know if I, drew the long straw or the short straw here. There's only about 20% of the media members. Everybody else followed that guy over there. But I was pretty impressed. He seemed pretty disrespected up there on the stage. And, a lot of the other coaches, I felt like not necessarily their interviews on stage, but the little segment that they did on ESPN with the little panel that they had. I thought a lot of the coaches were, more entertaining to watch than Dion, especially if you actually care about football and not just the hoopla. But I do have my Eat Shit Pitch shirt on because Neil Brown's interview got me fired up. He was fucking pissed off. Oh yeah, we're matching.
Double Eat Shit Pit, baby. Let's go.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah,
Neil was fired up, baby. He was PO'd. He was acting disrespected. You know, you start winning 7-9 games in a season. Now Neil Brown thinks he's the shit. This is awesome. I bought Neil Brown stock when it was pennies. And now I'm sitting on a heap of Neil Brown stock. And this guy thinks, you guys picked us 5th in the league. What the fuck are you thinking? 7th. Oh God.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, I liked listening to Dion for like 5 minutes, and then I just realized every other word he was saying was a fucking lie, and he's just hyping up his own players, his own son. He's talking about we should be one of the 12 playoff teams. Like, dude, you were 4-8 last year. I know that you think you got a better team, but just pump the brakes a little bit. But that's Dion. Dion's going to be Dion. You got to know that he's full of shit. He's an entertainer. He's good for the league. He's going to bring eyeballs to the product. And I keep talking about it. In result, guys that actually are fucking good, the Noah Fafitas of the world, the Jalon Daniels at Kansas of the world, the Avery Johnsons of the world, the Cam Risings, the Garrett Greens, KJ Jeffersons, the guys that actually are really good that don't get as many eyeballs on a national landscape are going to now get it because of the Dion Colorado effect being in primetime more often. But what were your thoughts? You mentioned it, Lance Leipold, Jalon Daniels. What were your thoughts on Jalon Daniels being back? It looks like he's healthy, ready to go. He's kind of the X factor in this league. You can make an argument when he's healthy, he's the best quarterback in the league, most talented at least.
You could definitely argue it. I do think when they asked about his health, not directly to him, but everybody else seemed to kind of tiptoe around it. And I don't know if that might have more to do with them just having the same questions asked for the last 2 years than them actually like not wanting to share something. They're probably a little frustrated by the fact that the only thing people want to ask about Kansas is, so what's up with Jalon Daniels? They played pretty well last year without Jalon Daniels.
Beam. Yeah, he was good. And those running backs are good too.
Yeah, and they get him back. They got Neil back and
Hishaw.
I don't know. Good. I mean, obviously the X factor is Jalon Daniels, but excuse me, the rest of the Kansas team, I mean, that was the reason why they were concentrated on culture and trying to not be the fucking stomping floor mat at the front door of the conference. And they've certainly elevated themselves pretty quickly out of that. I think you can kind of trust the Kansas culture. I mean, Leipold seems like a great coach. I don't know how many other people would show up in that situation and do what he's done. So you kind of have to take what he says at face value, I believe. But when it comes to the whole Jalon Daniels injury thing, we really don't know until we just see him play. You know, I mean, he might even be able to play 3 games and then not play for the rest of the year or something crazy like that. So, I mean, it's week to week. It's just like the NFL now. It's all week to week.
And to put in perspective, it is week to week. Lance Leipold's best year at Buffalo is year number 4. He heads into year number 4 at Kansas. You're right. Like watching Dion and then watching Leipold take over the podium. Leipold's all football, all business, talking about the development of their program, replacing an offensive coordinator, meshing that with their talent, with the talented backfield that they got with Daniels, Neal, and those weapons that they got. I see a lot of similarities between Lance Leipold and how Willie Fritz operates. Like listening to them talk, they kind of remind me of one another. And I think another takeaway I had was Willie Fritz. I think Houston could be a sleeping giant in this league with Willie Fritz. He has not gotten in a car since January to recruit. And that just speaks to the hotbed that Houston is in recruiting areas.
Yeah, it was between Brennan and Fritz talking about recruiting and then Gus Malzahn talking about recruiting. They gave kind of polar opposite answers. The I do like, I mean, Fritz was talking about how it is significantly easier than Tulane for him to recruit. He's definitely bought in. You can tell just by his attitude that he thinks he can do a pretty damn good job here in Houston. Mm-hmm. And then when he said, he had a quote about like, you know, I came in on the first day and I told all the guys, we don't have time to build culture. You guys have to be friends and buddies right now. And we have to start getting good at football. There's no like 3 or 4 year plan. We need to hit the ground running, which was really cool. And everything that he said was great, except for when he said that they don't really tackle in practice. So Houston is finishing last place in this league.
Well,
you've got to put your fucking pads on and tackle. It's just.
I think he expanded on that, though. I think that he said that with his more advanced teams, they didn't tackle in practice. I think he said they're going to tackle this year because they need to set the culture.
Well, whenever he brought up he said something about how like some certain practices that they do, they don't tackle as much as other teams. And that's a red flag to me. That's a red flag to me.
Yeah, they better tackle because that Houston defense sucked last year. I'm trying to think who else was there. UCF is very got some silent confidence to him. I mean, Malzahn didn't compare KJ Jefferson to Cam Newton, but he said he's the most physically dominant, gifted athlete at the quarterback position since Cam Newton. We talked about this. We both think that UCF could, hell, maybe even win the Big 12 and get to that Final Four.
I think that's your real sleeper in this league this year is the shiny Knights.
Yeah. Yep.
Now they did ask Gus about, you know, first year in the Big 12, how it went and how you're changing your preparation for the second year. And the very first thing that he said is, you know, there's a lot of outside opinions on the Big 12, but this is not a 7-on-7 football league. The good teams in this league play fucking physical football, and we didn't do that last year, and we really need to change that. That's cool that he recognizes it and whatnot. But I really liked, they were talking, they talked to Brennan, they talked to Fritz about, you know, getting these larger jobs and your easiness in recruiting. And Gus Malzahn was like, recruiting's easy. We recruit Florida.
Yeah.
I mean, he just straight up, he was like, sometimes we go into northern Georgia a little bit, but besides that, we've got enough guys down here in Florida. We don't care. So you've got, I'm sure I'll talk about more of Brent Brennan's interview in a little bit, but the first thing he says is, you know, I love being in the Big 12. Now I can go recruit, you know, Central America. I can go recruit Florida. I can go recruit West Virginia and Central and Northern Virginia and Virginia Beach and whatnot. And Gus Malzahn's like, we got Lakeland right down the road. We don't need to go anywhere else. We're going to Lakeland High School. We're going to sign all 22 of those guys and we're good.
Yeah, no,
it's just a very funny dynamic.
Just to rewind a year ago, that's what we were talking about with them joining this league is they potentially could be it's got to take class after class, year after year, stockpile winning season after winning season, and hopefully championships. But don't sleep on UCF overtaking a couple of those Florida schools, cough, the Gators and Canes. I mean, the Seminoles finally just got it back on track recently with Norvell, but those other two programs have been dog shit the last 5-7 years. So UCF, this is the time to strike, change the narrative that not only is UCF one of the top schools in the state of Florida, they could overtake those other ones and be the school in Florida with how big their school is in Orlando, and now they have the Power 5 backing. I don't know. You're a big Shiny Knights guy. Do you agree with that? Yeah,
I mean, for the last couple of years, it seems like their athletic programs, just all of them in general, have been right on that cusp of, you know, we're really trying to make a name for ourselves. They seem like the team. I mean, even when we were doing the expansion stuff last year, they seemed like the one out of that group that had the best chance to step in and elevate all of their sports programs and become a real player in the Big 12. I think they did okay last year, football-wise. I think they did better than expected, basketball-wise. I mean, as long as you keep taking steps forward, you're gonna get at least to a really competitive spot. And even if they don't become like that number one Florida school or even near par with the UF and Miami, there's plenty of recruiting in Florida where they're going to have talented teams. And then, you're not using the portal like Dion does. You're using the portal to fill your 2 or 3 missing spots instead of bringing in, 35 guys. And I like Gus. I mean, Gus Malzahn also seems like a dude that's just football through and through.
Mm-hmm.
And then KJ Jefferson had his fucking sweet chain on, showing up in the black and gray suit with this sweet chain. They put him up on TV and they list him at like 6'4", 264 pounds or something like that. And I'm like, oh my God, quarterback power is going to work every time. Just run QB power on these guys. It's 3 or 4 yards is going to crush.
Yeah, they bring
back Harvey too at running back though. So that could be a big part of their game, the ground game.
We always look for a team that lost a shitload of close games. They lost 3 games by 1 possession. They won 3 out of their last 4 coming down the stretch. They're definitely a candidate to bounce back, make a jump here. On the other side, we will talk about some other teams, aka the Mountaineers, at Media Days. But first, we got to talk about Moonoff, the Machine, Manji, and Chris are getting ready for the NFL season with the Propcast. So get on over there. All episodes dedicated to the awards market. Plus, CJ Bottom Line Bombs is taking his road to $6 million. So go check out that podcast. Tune in wherever you are to get your podcast or on the SGPN app. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Pick 8 is now live, better than ever. The best part is you can win up to 325 times your original amount. Damn, that's a good ROI. So sign up today. You got to use that promo code right above my head, TCESGPN, to claim your special pick and first-time deposit. Offer up to $250 bonus in cash. Underdog Fantasy promo code TCESGPN. And we're also brought to you by Circa Survivor. Circa Sports is back, better than ever, bigger than ever. 16 million guaranteed in prizes. 5 NFL games each week, ATS, and the Survivor Challenge. So get on over there. You can play anywhere, even have a deal with the football contest, proxy.com, to save you $50 with promo code SGP, Circa Survivor, and go join Sean and Ryan at the greatest sports book in all of the land, August 22nd through the 24th. All righty, we are back on the Big 12 College Experience, diving into the Media Days. So Neil Brown last year was adamant. We're not finishing 14th. Well, they did not finish 14th. They finished 4th, finished 8-4, 9-4. You include the bowl game. He was very confident. We got 5 offensive linemen coming back this year. They got a bunch coming back on the offensive line once again. Not 5 starters, 4 starters. Got your quarterback back, Garrett Green. You got your running backs back, Jaheim White, CJ Donaldson. Got bolstered up in the portal on the defensive backfield. Mountaineers, what do you think, Troy? Did Neil sell you again at Media Day this year?
Well, if the trend reigns true, he's going to win more than 8 games this year, right? Just keep the climb.
More than 8 games this year with that schedule, they're going to be a playoff contender. If they go 9-3 with that schedule, maybe they got to go 10-2. But yeah, this schedule's brutal. That's the only knock on the Mountaineers this year. The talent is there, the experience is there. It's just the schedule is brutal.
They do seem very, very confident that Garrett Green is going to take a pretty big step forward again, too. Which, in my mind,
at that point,
then we're talking like Pat White level production, which is not anywhere out of the reach. If you look at what Garrett Green's done, just straight production numbers wise, is really, really good. I don't know if he really brought it up, but Neil Brown certainly brought up the disrespect on how Garrett Green's not getting listed with some of these other Big 12 quarterbacks. He deserves to be listed in that top 5 or 6 quarterbacks in the league for sure.
Where would you take him?
Well, we were talking about it a little bit earlier. I mean, Fafita and Cam Rising would be 1, 2, and then Jalon would be 3, and not necessarily in any order. I think I would actually put KJ Jefferson 4.
Yeah,
and then probably Garrett Green.
I agree, man.
I'm taking him over Shedeur. I know we talked about this a little bit earlier, but I'm taking Garrett Green over Shedeur Sanders 10 times out of 10.
100%. From a college football production standpoint, yeah. And we could talk about Shedeur here in a minute. Way too overconfident for a guy that, I mean, statistically was good last year, but when you finish 4-8, humble yourself a little bit, buddy. Humble yourself a little bit.
Yeah, and the other thing,
HBCU stats. I'm like, what are you talking about?
The other thing you have to take into account is the whole with all the transfer portal talent that Colorado has, and last year Dion saying, we have the most talent in the country, says the same thing again at media days this year. Shedeur Sanders, if he's surrounded with all of these talented guys, he should be putting up those numbers. The difference is he should be winning games. The 440-yard passing performance is only sweet if you win the football game. And again, it's not always on him.
They're down 3 scores too. He pads his stats.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're throwing every down, I mean, you're going to, and the other thing, people get annoyed at Deion's so confident. Deion's earned the right to be cocky as hell. Deion's arguably the greatest cornerback in NFL history. Deion's pissed a drop, as they like to say. Shedeur has not. Shedeur he can be a good player, but I get the sense for him just because he's Deion Sanders' kid that he's arrived. He has not arrived. He has not done shit. Yes, he won some games at the HBCU level, and then he got in the Pac-12 last year, and they got their team beat the week after.
He beat TCU. Congratulations.
Yeah, who was terrible last year. Yeah, the Colorado players, they're the ones that need to humble themselves, in my opinion. Deion's Deion. He's earned the right to say whatever the hell. Like I said, he's arguably the greatest cornerback in NFL history. Maybe one of the greatest athletes. With you consider that he played Major League Baseball and in an NFL game all in the same day. But I'm with you. I'll take Garrett Green over Shedeur Sanders. Yeah, anybody watching can clip that all day. Give me Garrett Green. I'll take Jalon Daniels over Shedeur Sanders. Take Cam Rising for sure over Shedeur Sanders. Noah Fafita, yes. And then we'll see what happens with Avery Johnson. Avery Johnson, I guess, is a guy that I could talk myself into when I see him a little bit more. I'll take Shedeur over Alan Bowman.
Oh yeah. Avery Johnson's also just one of those guys that's going to be boom or bust. Like no matter what happens, you'll be able to tell, I think, 2 or 3 weeks into the year if, they actually have struck gold on this guy or not. I don't think you're going to see him like start slow and then turn it on. I think you'll be able to tell pretty quickly whether, it was a flash in the pan in that bowl game or if he's really going to be that much of an X factor and difference maker. But we could be sitting here in 3 weeks and be talking all about Avery Johnson, and no one would remember that Shedeur Sanders is now in the Big 12.
Yep. Yeah, I mean Deion. I mean he's talking about his kid too, so take it with a grain of salt. He's talking about I got to replace him. I'm like, what do you mean you got to replace him? Why don't you let him play and actually produce for a 12-game season rather than put up a couple games early statistically and then peter out for the last 2 months of the year like your whole team did? So. Yeah, Colorado's going to be a ongoing topic all year. I'd like to see some production to back up all the talk, especially from the players' side of it.
And I don't know if we're going to see that this year from Colorado. It seems very iffy. Seems very iffy. Not just the schedule being hard, just that much turnover and the fact that college football does start week 0 now. You can't with the expanded playoff, you get if you're one of the elite teams, you definitely get the freedom of maybe losing a game or two. But Colorado's, they're talking about trying to become bowl eligible. They're going to be scraping their teeth for every possible win that they could get.
Their win total,
and I just,
for a reason.
Yeah, and I don't really see it personally. Not even if Shedeur Sanders plays well, unless that defense takes major steps forward, the rest of these Big 12 quarterbacks should be able to eat them alive.
I forget who it was that they were saying, Colorado guys were saying that they're the everybody's Super Bowl. They're not everyone's Super Bowl.
They might be North Dakota State's Super Bowl.
Yeah, and they're Colorado States, and they may be Nebraska's too, just because of the old rivalry. But Utah, Oklahoma State, and K-State are not going, oh, man, we got to circle that Colorado game. No fucking way. I mean, K-State, they go through a stretch where they play Oklahoma State and Colorado back-to-back. You think they're circling Colorado instead of Oklahoma State? No fucking way. They have aspirations of winning the Big 12, not just getting on social media and getting 1,000 fucking clicks or whatever the fuck they call it now.
And not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but I would almost say that Houston would have that game circled as like a bye week.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, if Houston plays physical defense against Colorado, that game could be wrapped up by halftime. It might not be a blowout, but when it's, 21-3 and you can't move the ball, there could be issues. But yeah, I don't think that there's definitely not the top two tiers of teams that we listed a couple of weeks ago. I don't think any of those teams are circling Colorado thinking like, oh, we have something to prove here.
No.
And certainly
the little guys like North Dakota State and Colorado State.
And if for some reason North Dakota State can play them close, even if they don't win, that's gonna hurt their brand pretty hard, I think.
We shall see. What do you think about Fafita and the Arizona Wildcats?
Well, the way that Brennan was talking about, he got brought in after he was hired, and he didn't know how many kids were either going to stay or transfer and whatnot, and that he had Noah gather up. He told him like maybe 25 or 30 of the integral guys on the team, and I want to talk to him. And they talked for the first day, and then the next day, almost every one of those kids said that they were coming back and they were going to stay and play. And he was very specific about how he had the coaching staff kind of learn the players and model the game after the talent that they have instead of, hey, I coach, run and shoot. We're running this. This is how we play football, which crazy concept. But using the talent in the way that you can best use it is probably going to help your team be more successful. They've got the guy that I'm betting on to win the Heisman Trophy.
He could. I mean,
and it's not Noah Fafita. It's McMillan, the wide receiver. When he has 1,850 yards and 18 touchdowns,
quarterback award. That's a problem.
Yeah, this feels like a year that it's not going to be a QB though. It just feels like a, hey, remember, running backs and wide receivers can win this too. He's so good. He's the best wide receiver in the nation. When you watch all of his tape and whatnot, and obviously it helps having a guy that's thrown you the ball for multiple years in a row that knows where you're going to be all the time. But those two are it's going to be very reminiscent of like Baker Mayfield and CeeDee Lamb, where every single time you think you've got them stopped, and then there's just that back-breaking like 3rd and 12, 14-yard pickup, and you're like, oh, God, we're staying on the fucking field for longer. He also, when they were talking to him about recruiting, and I said something earlier about him being happy that he can, kind of travel and pick up some other recruiting locations, he said that the way he's been selling Arizona football is that we're going to play exciting big play football. We're going to try to score every play, and we might give up some big plays, but it's going to be we're going to look like we're having more fun and playing more exciting than anyone else. And that approach is 100% going to work to get you some of the more talented guys that, they might burn out somewhere if they were to go to an Alabama or a Georgia and immediately hop into that SEC grind where everything is demanding. You might have some kids that are really talented that haven't figured out quite yet that, if I put my mind to this, I could play in the NFL, or now we've got a bunch of spring leagues and shit. You can become a grad assistant and be an assistant coach 2 or 3 years after graduating. You're going to be able to find some kids that aren't really interested in, busting ass for Kirby Smart, and they would rather go play exciting big play football. It just seems like it seems like a good zag to sell the excitement now. We were talking about it on the last episode. Everybody's kind of zagged away from the super spread, Cliff Kingsbury throw the ball 57 times a game in the Big 12. Well, there's got to be someone that fills that role. And this year it's going to be Arizona, and they're going to be fun to watch. And I think they're going to win the league. I think they've got national championship aspirations. I think that when you've got a quarterback and a wide receiver like that, and the way that they obviously are best friends. They've known each other for so long, but the way that they were all talking about their teammates and one another, they seem like they've got something special down there. And all Brennan's got to do is stay out of his own way, which seems like a pretty easy thing to do.
I think they upgraded coach, actually.
Maybe.
I actually think Brennan's a better coach than Fish. I think Fish hit the lightning in the bottle with Fafita and McMillan. I think Brennan is built San Jose State from nothing and made them competitive, respectable. I just worry about what it's like in year one together. That's the only thing. Like sometimes, like it sounds good. It's just going to be interesting, and we'll find out quick. I mean, they play K-State week 3 in that first non-con game. That's a conference game that isn't a conference game. So we're going to know early with Arizona if they're going to be a contender. Rush is not here. Rush is getting head shoulder surgery today. He'll be back next week. 2 coaches on the hot seat, 2 coaches that are on most hot seat by far in this league. Dave Aranda at Baylor and Kalani Sitake at BYU. Last year, Neil Brown was by far the most on the hot seat. He saved his job. Did you sense from either of them that any of the same swagger that Neil had last year?
No, these are the 2 most boring coaches in the fucking league. And
dude,
at least
Aranda had a quote though.
I was gonna say at least Kalani Sitake seems like a cool guy to like hang out with outside of football. Like he seems like he can turn it on and off. Dave Aranda just seems like a supervillain that can't quite figure out Superman and is gonna keep doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, did you see what he said? They said, what you guys are recruiting at a high level. What'd you do differently?
Yeah,
we're paying dudes.
We're paying them. Yeah.
Hey,
well, someone had the balls.
Party, Dave Aranda.
And someone had the balls to say it how it is, but I mean, again, it's kind of like Gus Malzahn being UCF in Florida. Even though Baylor is not ever going to be listed amongst the ranks of a Texas or a Texas A&M in terms of the alumni base and the history for football and all that kind of shit. If you're recruiting in Texas, you should be able to put a pretty talented team out there on the field, which again, I think talent's not the issue. It just seems like a very disjointed coaching staff. And, you know, they go get Spavital from Texas State and they're looking to pass the ball a little bit more. But
I like Spavital. He was Dana's offensive coordinator at West Virginia.
It just, Dave Aranda just seems too fucking boring for me. Like, it's okay for Kalani Sitake to be like that at BYU, where it's probably appreciated for the guy to be, you know, honorable, kind of keeps to himself, soft-spoken-ish. I mean, obviously when he's coaching, he gets fired up. I'm just talking outside of the game. Outside of the game of football, you couldn't pay me money to hang out with Dave Aranda. There's like, what are we gonna?
I think Baylor is going to be better than people think.
They might be.
I think Aranda's going to save his job. I actually had some. He said he's taking over play calling again on the defensive side, like Neil did on the offensive side last year. I like the kid from Toledo, Finn, coming over and play quarterback. I think that they're going to surprise some teams this year.
I think Spavital might save Aranda's job.
Yeah, exactly.
But it just makes you think that's what Dave Aranda should really be doing, is a high caliber defensive coordinator, not a mid-caliber head coach asked to do more.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. And then Sitake, I don't know about Sitake. They're 5-1 last year. They lose out. They don't make a bowl. They're an interesting team this year because I feel like they were better than the record. Like UCF, lost a bunch of close games, but the jury's out on Sitake. He's got to get this thing to a bowl to save his job for sure. So, all right, we'll talk a little conference realignment on the other side after this break. But first, we got to talk about Rhythm. If you want to get down on some player props, then download Rhythm. Rhythm is a sports betting tool that transforms complex data into actionable insights. Rhythm's predictive models were born in the brains of MIT data scientists and quants over there for 3 years data. Get on over there, claim your 7-day free trial by going over to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That is the sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM today. All righty, Troy. We couldn't make it through media days without a little bit of rumors and conference realignment talks. I think this one is related to 2028 or 29, maybe even 30. I don't even know what fucking year. Maybe it's 26. But now the rumor is that the Big 12 is, per Ross Dellinger, is in early discussions with the Florida State Seminoles and Clemson Tigers. Your takeaway?
Well, if you told me we could trade Texas and Oklahoma for Florida State and Clemson, you would take that, right?
Oh,
like even if you had to wait like 4 years in between or something like that.
We want some teams that actually win national championships.
If we get the best part will be if we get Clemson and Florida State, then my old college roommates will all be in the same fucking conference finally. And I don't have to root for Florida State anymore. I can start rooting against them again. But I'll be able to put the Clemson shirt on and the Florida State shirt when we go shirt swapping and I get shirtless on the podcast. We'll have like 9 shirts. It'll basically just be my league. Like I just picked all my favorite teams to play in the same league. And then,
we're gonna have to get 2 rows on that bottom with all these teams.
Also, you made a mistake earlier when you said Power 5. It's Power 4 now, buddy.
It's Power 5 in basketball. Power 4 in football. You're right.
Power 4 in football.
Because the Big East. You're right.
I forgot which coach it was. It might have been Brent Brennan when somebody asked him about like how's it like getting a Power 4 coaching job, and he kind of stopped for a second. And was like, "Whoa, good job." I would have said Power 5.
Hey, Pac-12 Media Days was last night. They had Wazoo and Oregon State. They did it together out in Vegas.
Yeah, they could have brought their whole teams.
They did. They brought like 5 from each team and then alumni as well. But back to what we're talking about. I don't know. I actually think Florida State and Clemson would actually really fit the league in terms of passionate fan bases, part of the country where your views are similar to the states of West Virginia, Ohio, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Arizona. Basically,
we're gonna be praying before games in the Big 12, baby.
Yeah.
Saturday morning we'll have a 5-minute sermon right before kickoff. Mike Gundy's gonna be over there like, oh.
I don't know though. It kind of feels like it's. I feel like it could be from a Yormark standpoint. Put that out there to get the ball rolling. Maybe the SEC, because I think both those will end up in the SEC, Florida State and Clemson. But once those 2 jump, then the other dominoes fall that we've talked about at length. The Pitt, Virginia Tech, Louisville, NC State, hell, maybe even Miami.
Luckily, if you want Florida State in the league, they're probably not too happy with the SEC right now with the fact that Alabama got taken over an undefeated Florida State team that probably should have been number 3, not number 4, if we're actually talking about things. But it just seems like the culture of the Florida State and the Clemson fit the Big 12 significantly better. So when you have the like the Bible Belt idea, and that's all of Dabo's recruiting. He's not paying anybody. He's saying if you can't come and play football here unless you love God and football, and that's it. And Norvell kind of seems like that too. Norvell seems like the kind of guy that's, football is what matters. Everything else takes a back seat, and those things will solve themselves when we concentrate on football. So I don't know. They seem like good fits right now. I don't know how much further into the future it would be. But Clemson really scares me. Clemson's going to be, just because of the way that Dabo's recruiting now and zagging the whole NIL and everything, it's going to work. They're going to get a bunch of dudes that stay 3 and 4 years that love praying, and they're going to have, the most experienced football team. I mean, give it 2 or 3 years from now, and before you know it, Clemson's going to be one of the last teams left that only starts seniors and juniors.
Yeah.
Like, I hope Dabo brings it back. Dabo should start telling freshmen, you're never fucking playing. You're redshirting as a freshman. You're fucking sitting on the bench, and you're proving that you love football enough to be a part of Clemson. Because everybody else has become pussies and is paying people like the kid that ended up in Nebraska $8 million before ever fucking playing a snap of spring football from the University of Florida. That's stupid. You don't need to be paying these kids that much. And it's not me trying to keep money from kids. It's the idea that you're better at football when you care about football, not what you're being paid.
Clemson just needs to survive September. September has kicked their ass the last 2 years. September and October, they've been dominant in November and December. They've won like 8 games end the year the last 2 or 3 years straight. So they just need to survive the early part of the season, and hopefully for the Clemson fan base.
Well, I mean, they still won 10 games last year, right?
I think they won 9. That's a kid from Spartanburg that was saying that Dabo was overpaid. What a fucking idiot. Dabo's fucking won 2 national championships there, and you're saying that he's overpaid?
Dabo should probably be the highest paid like state official in all of South Carolina.
He beat fucking Nick Saban in Alabama twice in their prime, ran them off the field. I mean, beat the shit out of them in San Francisco that one night with Tua in that Alabama team. I mean, they undressed Alabama like I've never seen. Alabama never gets blown out. Clemson annihilated them from the kickoff. So, Dabo's earned the right to have a couple 9-win seasons. Everybody people just need to chill the fuck out. I think Dabo will win another national championship. I am with you. I think that a little bit of zigging and zagging, kind of like everybody was air raiding it 3-4 years ago, and then Georgia all of a sudden just started pounding the rock again. Now Ohio State wants to pound the rock. Michigan started pounding the rock right down Ohio State's throat. They won a national championship. Sometimes when everybody's zigging, you got to zag, and I do think Clemson will get back to the top of the mountain again soon. But yeah, no, I didn't expect us to talk about Dabo and Clemson on this episode, but we started talking expansion. It's
love me some Dabo.
This time of year. Yeah, I love
nobody else goes sprinting down the hill and slaps the rock in the fucking court classics like Dabo Swinney, man.
They're 13.5-point dogs week 1 against the Dogs.
What they should do is they should have his like all white Air Monarchs. They should have him in a little box right at the top of the hill, and he should walk out there and like take his slippers off and put the Air Monarchs on, run down on the field, take them off, put them right back in the box.
They should have beat Florida State last year if the fucking kicker made a 27-yarder or whatever. Dabo signed him off the street earlier in the week. Motherfucker shanked it.
If Clemson was undefeated and was on their third string quarterback, they still would have made the college football playoff, though. There's no way they would have kept Clemson out.
I think they would have left him out because it's Alabama. It was all about Nick Saban in Alabama. That they wanted that brand in there. They wanted that Bama, Michigan,
that was
Rose
Bowl. Now I want to look at the ESPN contract. Like, was that worked in? Like, in the event that there's a chance you could get into your playoff in the last year, we'll make sure you get in if you take this job with us at ESPN afterwards. Well, at least fun, it won't be. At least 4 and 5 won't be a problem. Now we'll have to talk about like, oh, that number 13th ranked team could have won the national championship.
It won't be though as passionate because there won't be an undefeated team. Like
probably not.
The thing that sucked for
just because now you
Florida State went undefeated. Like they won every game in front of them. They should have been rewarded for that.
I was gonna say now too, just the human nature of having that room for error means that you're gonna see less and less undefeated teams. Not even just the packed conferences and the harder schedules. Dude. The kids know that in week 6, if you lose a game, the season is not over. Everything is still in front of you. And because of that, you're going to see less undefeated teams because in the past, those kids in week 6 knew this could be it. We have to win every one of these fucking games.
Well, and for somebody like myself that likes betting dogs, this should be a hell of a year to bet underdogs because like you said,
especially late in the year.
You get to that week 10, week 11, You got a 3-loss team. That's like, hey, if we win out, then you got maybe a 1-loss team or an undefeated team. It's like, this guy's banged up, let's just rest him. If we lose this game, it won't be held against us. And yeah, you're going to see more and more upsets. You're going to see more and more guys sit out games, not intentionally like the fucking NBA. Don't get me wrong. But if guys are banged up, it's like, why are we going to kill this guy when we're trying to win the national championship? If you're not a top 4 seed, you're going to have to play 12 weeks, a conference championship, that's 13, and then potentially win 3 more. That's 16 games.
16
correct?
Games, yeah.
Yeah, it's an NFL season. So I do think you're going to see more and more guys be game time scratches because there's no injury report in college football. Cam Rising will at least be scratched 1 or 2 times this year is my prediction.
Just for continued health.
Yes, because it's Whittingham. So, yeah, what's his name? Cam Rising. Game time decision week 1. Misses the whole year.
Yeah.
That's
dressed. Game time decision. Helmet on. Throwing in warmups. Out for the year.
Everybody thought Bill Belichick could keep a secret. Kyle Whittingham. You ever want to keep a secret? Fucking go to that guy. That guy kept that he was out for the whole year until about like week number 10. So, all right, man.
I would say dudes are really good at keeping secrets if they know pig farmers. Like the small amount of people that know pig farmers are probably really good at keeping things under wraps. You know, when you've got that one pig that you're going to take to the state fair and like a month and a half before the fair, you already know like there's nobody else with an 835-pound fucking hog. We're going to win, but you can't let everyone know.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Whittingham seems cool too. I would have a beer with Whittingham.
Fuck yeah. Whittingham's good dude, good coach, good culture there. All right, Troy. That'll do it for Media Days. Media Days are in the books. Like I said, 7 weeks away, which means it is team previews. We will kick those off next week. Make sure you are subscribed to all channels. Go check out the College Football Main Show with Colby, Nick, Patty C, breaking down all 134 teams. I think they're wrapping up the Big Ten now, which means they'll be moving on to another league here soon. They'll be doing Big 12 teams here soon as well, which we'll be a part of. But go check out the College Basketball Experience. Did some more coaches interviews this week with their summer coaches tour, and we will continue those all summer, all fall long. And Noah and I will be back breaking down those 5-year plans for the Big Ten and Conference USA. Go check out the College Baseball Experience as well with Noah Beanick. We all come together on YouTube as one at the College Experience. Like, subscribe, tell a friend, help us out so that we can help you out. Troy, any last thoughts before we get out of here?
Whoever wins the Scottish Open this week will not win the British Open next week.
I like it. He is at Troy Tuning. I am at Moneyline_Mac. We are the Big 12 College Experience, and we are out of here.